Harry and Meghan's New York City trip seemed to kind of be not very well covered in the media, which makes sense. Like, why cover Harry and Meghan anymore? And they were just there doing some nonsense. It wasn't that important. But there was something important that came of it that I haven't seen many people talking about this. But Harold and the Meg have given up on one of their initiatives already. Only just over a year since they made this big song and dance about it, they're essentially washing their hands of it. It's something that they tried to make a big deal for Archewell and for themselves. And they've basically ended it already. And I haven't seen articles picking this up and talking about the significance of this, which is wild. But I mean, at the same time, it's not, because like I said, it's Harry and Meghan. Like, meh, not that important. So I have details on that, plus more on the New York City debacle in today's video. And this weekend, we are also going to compare the Sussexes' vacuous approach to World Mental Health Day versus the real royals. So for a deeper dive on where the Sussexes went wrong and what it can mean for them, then click the subscribe button and the bell icon, but only if you want to. That way you'll be notified when the video goes live this weekend, and I would like to also invite you to click the thumbs up if you would like to. Now, on to this scoop, this tidbit of news that I just haven't seen many people talking about, but it's actually really important and significant for the Sussexes overall. Remember this really weird interview with Jane Pauley last year where they brought up the Meg's mental health? Harry said that parents need to be first responders. That one. The one where Jane said that she knew Harry would be holding Meghan's hand and supporting her when they brought up her mental health, but he wasn't. He was just completely ignoring her, and Meghan had her hand on his knee, pawing at him, but he was ignoring her. It was funny, but it was also incredibly weird to leave it on. Like, even in editing, why didn't they fix that? Because it was embarrassing for everybody. It made all of them look bad, even Jane Pauley. Like, what is she talking about? Was this scripted? But the point of that interview actually wasn't to talk about the Meg at all. And it wasn't to talk about she and Harold's faux touchy-feely vibe. No. It also wasn't to get a good look at her hugely high-rise trousers and poorly styled mess of a look. No. The point of that interview was to announce the Parents Network by Archewell. The whole thing was confusing, though, because it was not very clear. We got mixed messages that it was for parents who had lost a child due to online harms, but that it was also meant to include just general bullying, as well as overdoses of people who had acquired things through online means, and more. So that really muddied the waters, because those are just radically different types of experiences that would require radically different approaches to safeguard against. Think about it. Two completely crazy different concepts, totally different needs in terms of helping to prevent those things from continuing happening. One of them involves like stuff. One of them is just, words and experiences and stuff like that. So it's like very different. I'm not saying one's worse than the other. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying for the Parents Network, it made it a very confusing initiative that immediately hindered its ability to make any progress or deliver any solutions because it was too broad. Just anything that has been a negative experience online in any way, shape, or form, if online can be looped in any way, then this is what this is for, which is crazy because, the internet is huge. So anyway, it was odd because, as we said at the time, it would have been a lot more impactful to have focused on just bullying, for example, which can range from distressing all the way to the extremes of despair and depression from bullying with tragic outcomes. By focusing on bullying alone, they would have been able to launch meaningful campaigns that had long-term impact. But we're talking about Harold and the Meg here. So no dice. They did a bad job. They left it big and also vague, and no surprise, nothing came of it. They made no progress. In that Jane Pauley interview, I think that was August of last year, correct me if I'm wrong, they made this a really big deal. They launched the Parents Network. That's how they landed the CBS interview, was to say, we are launching this Parents Network. It's going to be a really big deal. It's going to change things. It's innovative. And so CBS Good Mornings, or whatever it's called, was like, okay, we'll send you Jane Pauley. They even wrote a little statement about it on their website that nobody looks at. And they tried to make it this official big deal for Archewell, something that they've been pointing at ever since last summer to say, see, we are doing things. with Archewell. Look at what we have done. We launched a whole entire network. We are big deals. Look at it. But not so fast. Clearly, it hasn't been going well, and it has maintained a very small amount of involvement. No numbers are publicly available. Archewell and Parents Network has never disclosed how many people were members or signed up or, wanted to join this community or platform or utilizing the resources or participating at all. We don't know how many people engaged with the website or the program. As far as we know, there were no events, there were no meetings, there was no nothing. It was just a small private community with a few families. And let me just state the obvious here. Obviously, my heart goes out to these families. They've experienced the unimaginable, and they deserve all the support and help that they can get and all the compassion that people have to offer. And it really sucks and makes me mad that they got caught up in the Sussexes nonsense, because they deserve so much better and did not deserve to have the Sussexes drop the ball on them and give them hope that there was going to be this community and there was going to be a lot of support and a lot of things going on, that was going to feel better and that they were going to do things. They did nothing for over a year, and that sucks for the families, and that's not okay. So my heart goes out to them as an aside, but it's the Sussexes' fault. These promises were not kept. And there's been no real help or advocacy or resources provided to these heartbroken families. And so this isn't actually about them. It's about the Sussexes' failure to do what they said, to achieve anything, to actually reach even a minimum benchmark of maybe having some group sessions or something like that at a minimum. We still don't even really know what the Parents Network was besides a website. But none of it matters anymore, because during this monotone speech that Harold gave while he was accepting an award at Project Healthy Minds Gala, which he did not deserve, we have a video about that, he announced that the Parents Network is being absorbed by Parents Together. Now, you may wonder why Parents Network even was launched when there was something so similar, so much bigger, so much more well-funded and established as Parents Together already existing. But it's Harry and Meghan we're talking about here, and this is why it makes me mad that these families were essentially taken advantage of by Harry and Meghan, who should have just been like, hey, let's connect you to Parents Together, because they're obviously a lot more equipped to deal with these types of issues and to help these types of families. Regardless, Harry says that this was a natural evolution. He says joining forces, as to imply a partnership, but upon digging further, Parents Network is not keeping its own identity. It's not going to stay a separate thing. It's being integrated, which means absorbed by Parents Together. Basically, the few who signed up and got suckered into Parents Network with Harry and Meghan are now going to be basically getting referred to Parents Together, and going forward will just use Parents Together resources and platforms and things of that nature. So despite trying to package this as a merch, it's really Harry and Meghan stepping back from it. Archewell, and therefore Harry and Meghan, will no longer be involved in any day-to-day work or anything of that sort. They're not going to be managing anything. With Parents Network, it was run by Archewell. Parents Network relied on Archewell and therefore Harry and Meghan to organize and cultivate the support community and the resources. But it wasn't a very successful experience during the just over a year that it was active. So now Archewell is basically giving it away to Parents Together, sort of, and will now have zero responsibility. There's going to be no administrative or organizing responsibilities connected to Archewell and Harry and Meghan any longer, because Parents Network is essentially disappearing, and now it's just Parents Together. They're no longer, basically the Sussexes and their nonsense, their teams, are no longer running anything at all. Parents Together is taking on the Parents Network people, and all of the Parents Together resources, established community, and obviously much more comprehensive and extensive approach will serve those families who previously were looking to Parents Network for help much, much better at Parents Together. And they essentially should have been with Parents Together from the start. Like I said, there was no need to waste time with Harold and the Megs, Archewell nonsense, network nonsense at all. It shouldn't have even happened. So what this really means is that not only is Parents Network ending, but Harry and the Meg and Archewell's involvement is shifting as well. Because they're no longer in charge of anything, they have arranged to be advocates with, alongside, Parents Together. Things like this, where they give annoying speeches full of nothing and talk about stuff that they have little understanding of and wear inappropriate or silly outfits and GMPs while doing so, is what we have to look forward to from Harold and the Meg in terms of their involvement and connection with Parents Together. It's going to be this sort of a thing, rather than actually running anything at all. They're now in a pay-to-show-up-and-talk arrangement with Parents Together rather than managing anything. And it's my understanding, none of this has been, officially announced, really. Harry technically officially announced that Parents Network is going to become part of Parents Together, but he failed to specify, and I have since found out that Parents Network, like I said, it's not keeping its own identity, it's not running its own operations, it's not doing its own thing at all. It's literally going away, and now those families and potentially enhancing some of the resources around families who've lost children connected to social media harms or whatever, however you want to say it, they might enhance some of the resources for that. And the real connection I can find that seems to be verified is that Meghan and Harry will continue to show up to speak about or introduce or support occasionally those specific initiatives within Parents Together, because Parents Together is much more broad. And so when they are going to do something that involves social media safety and things like that, and anti-online bullying, then they may reach out to Harry and Meghan to introduce a panel or give a little speech or say a few words or show up to a discussion or something like that, to be involved occasionally if it's relevant. And those are kind of the only things that Harry and Meghan will be called upon for. Beyond that, they're not involved at all. So while Harry and Meghan are much more capable in this type of a role than they were actually taking on the responsibility for a serious initiative like they attempted with Parents Network, it's still not a great arrangement and not something that I'm necessarily looking forward to. We're talking about malcontents here. People who have not set examples of good mental health themselves, Harry and Meghan. People who are very controversial. So I hope that it doesn't do damage to Parents Together, having them involved as advocates for these types of subjects, but it does have a real chance of doing that. It sounds like Parents Together's strategy is to very much corner Harry and Meghan off into only the types of subjects that connect to what Parents Network was previously focused on, which was things connected to online interactions going south, being negative. And by doing so, they will isolate and insulate themselves from too much of Harry and Meghan's negative influence. But at the same time, we have seen how Harry and Meghan participating in organizations has resulted in catastrophe in the past. Donors leaving, contributions shrinking, Harry and Meghan getting petty with the press and battling with the media over who can come and correcting stupid stuff and taking attention away from the cause in doing so, and making everyone, including the organization, look bad. Also, Harry's been guilty of a lack of attention and oversight, leading to myriad problems within charities. Bringing negative attention and keeping other higher profile advocates or celebrity involvement away is also a very real threat, because very few public figures are willing to be seen alongside Harry and Meghan and controversial figures in general. So there's a potential risk here with Parents Together. At the same time, there's of course some benefits, potentially. But Harry and Meghan are trying desperately to make this look a lot less like they've given up and more like it's collaborative. So let's take a little closer look at what they actually said about this absorption of Parents Network and ending Parents Network and kind of giving it to Parents Together. Perhaps they realized they were out of their depth. I don't know. So let's take a look at what they've said and what that actually means. Because if you just read the words, it sounds a lot different than if you think about what it actually means in these contexts. So it's been framed as, and Harry said something along the lines of, combining efforts to maximize reach which really just means that the Parents Network members, ex-members, are now Parents Together members. Therefore, they will get more resources because Parents Together has a lot more established resources and systems to offer people, and Parents Network literally had zero. The same goes for phrases like expand the scope of Parents Network. Parents Network was tiny and resource poor. There wasn't anything done with it in the last year, so now, as part of Parents Together, there's a vast amount of resources available and a lot more support, because Parents Together is a larger and more legitimate organization. Accelerated advocacy just means that Parents Together is making more progress than Parents Network ever was or ever could have. And it has already initiated legislation. Therefore, as compared to Parents Network, those handful of people who are now moving over to looking to Parents Together for help will experience greater advocacy now at this new space, in this new organization. They will also get a wider range of support and access to more events and ways to participate or contribute or join in campaigns for legislation. Expansion, not separation. That's Harry and Meghan trying to package this thing as Parents Together expanding to include Parents Network. Being like, this is Parents Together, and now it's Parents Network and Parents Together. Now Parents Together is bigger because it's added on Parents Network. But Parents Together was already huge. So adding on a tiny sliver of Parents Network people isn't really expanding Parents Together much at all. And it's important to note, Parents Network is not running parallel to Parents Together. It's being incorporated. There's no more Parents Network at all. It's just Parents Together, and they are going to, it's my understanding. They have not officially announced this, but it's my understanding that Parents Together is going to, like I said, try to enhance some specific resources and offer some specific supports to families who have lost children to social media harms or online harms of some way, shape, or form. So they're going to focus a little bit of energy on enhancing that element to all the things that they do, but it's not new. They already had some of that going on quite a bit. I think that they've just kind of said that they're going to try to explain this situation better. Why not just say that, Parents Together is much better suited to help these families, and so now you're going to close Parents Network, refer the families to Parents Together, and offer your support and fund some stuff. Fund some projects, Harry and Meghan. Stop making everything so much more difficult and making it sound so much different than it is. Stop trying to spin stuff. Just let stuff be the truth. Anyway, combining efforts and leveraging resources, another tidbit that they said, just means that those people who were part of Parents Network now have better access through Parents Together, and the Sussexes think that they'll be helping because Parents Network had nothing to bring to the table. They had nothing to offer Parents Together, at least not anything that Parents Together didn't have already. So Harry and Meghan have offered their support because there was nothing else to offer Parents Together. And as I said, it's believed that Parents Together is going to continue to expand and build upon the programs specifically focused on online harms, social media harms, and things like that. But they already had this initiative listed, so how much that will expand, we don't know at this time. But we can infer that Harry and Meghan will specifically talk about those subjects and kind of stay in their lane because they're not broadly associated with Parents Together at this time, but rather pledging their involvement and support of the select topics of online safety as part of this, like, hey, take on this Parents Network project for us because we don't know what we're doing. So this is a little bit of a gamble for Parents Together, but they are a big organization, and it would appear that they have limited Harry and Meghan's access or involvement into this niche initiative of online safety, where they can, in theory, provide visibility because they do get themselves into the news. But it can also draw scrutiny, criticism, and be polarizing, obviously, as we have seen unfold in the past countless times. For Harry and Meghan, this merge can also be perceived as performative, that they're just swanning in to give little speeches when allowed, and that doesn't really do that much for an actual cause. A lot of people who do the hard work in nonprofits grow resentful of the celebrity or the public figure endorsements or the advocates, or even if there's like public figures involved of some other variety who kind of swan in and give their speeches and whatnot or advocate for a cause, it can get annoying for the people who do the hard day-to-day work and grind on it, and it's their life's passion or their life's work, because they are the ones putting in all the hard work. And the people who come in to give the publicity lack the knowledge, and it can be frustrating for those people. And I would imagine that would be compounded if you have Harry and Meghan involved, who are not likable and clearly know nothing, and also, frustratingly, thought that they could help these people and like become a competitor to Parents Together, and have failed completely. They failed these families and wasted a year of these people's lives doing nothing. Ultimately, the success of this partnership, which appears rather informal at the moment, more of a collaboration that seems rather fluid, because there's no official ambassadorship with Harry and Meghan announced at the time of filming this, at least. The success of this, the potential success of this, all depends on whether Harry and Meghan can leverage their ability to get media attention into something positive for once. And if they can stop talking about themselves, it would offer a greater chance. I recently saw an interview with Jennifer Aniston, who I don't really know much about. And she was mentioning that for like 20 years, she was trying to conceive and struggled all that time. And her ex went on to have a big family, and the media often speculated that Jen just didn't want kids. And that was part of the reason why her relationship fell apart and stuff like that. But behind the scenes, she was going through something extraordinarily painful. And it was heartbreaking to hear her discuss this. And she did so not in a self-pitying, navel-gazing way, but just in a human way. The point is that she advocates for women's health, fertility access, and things of that nature. And she doesn't need to remind people why she does that every single time she speaks about it, or does something to support it. Meghan and Harry seem to think that they need to repeat why they're advocating for online safety every single time they do anything. In the long run, that won't serve the cause. Spending all your airtime regurgitating why you are there, or why you care about this, or why this matters to you and how it connects to you just means you're spending more time talking about yourself. It's almost more powerful to find out that, for example, in this case, Jennifer had this very real, very emotional reason for advocating for women's health and fertility and things of that nature, access. It's almost more impactful to learn that she has a real connection to this, and that's why she's advocating for it, than to constantly hear her talk about why, if that makes sense. It makes it feel more legit, more cause-focused, less me-focused. Like, almost like that's a way that she can, in some way, maybe heal a little bit from the pain of that experience and that disappointment and that challenge, that she can at least advocate for the science of women's health and reproductive health and access to fertility treatments or things of that nature, that she can at least try to help make sure these things continue to move forward and improve over the years. But she doesn't need to constantly make it about herself. And I feel like that's always been a really big mistake with Harry and Meghan, that tying it back to themselves has value, but only if it's the background. It needs to only be brought up occasionally, and it needs to not be the front and center main talking point. But Harry and Meghan make it the main talking point all the time. It's almost never do they show up anywhere and not mention why they care about online bullying. It's ridiculous, and it undermines the purpose, and it undermines the cause, because then they're spending more time talking about themselves instead of just focusing on those solutions or opportunities or whatever, and supporting it and feeling more like a genuine, true champion. It makes it feel performative, the way Harry and Meghan do. But leave your thoughts in the comments. I'm eager to read the discussion there. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you next time. Have a happy day, everybody. Bye.